What's up you guys, Mo Awesome from Awesome MTB and welcome to the Awesome MTB Ultimate XC Bike Shootout.
I think the Scalpel is faster than my Yeti SP140.
What's going on you guys, Mo Awesome from Awesome MTB and welcome back to the Awesome MTB XC Buyer's Guide. We currently have 7 of the best XC bikes on the market and we are going through dissecting each one and trying to figure out what is the best bike in the test and also who each bike is for. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down the Cannondale Scalpel 2 that I've been reviewing over the last few weeks, talking about what I love about this bike, talking about some things that I don't necessarily love, and letting you guys know if this bike is for you and if not, whose it's going to be for. I have been testing the Cannondale Scalpel 2, which is actually their $6,500 price point bike. This bike is about $8,000 more affordable than the most expensive bike in this buyer's guide, the S-Works Epic. Is the Epic $8,000 better than this bike? We'll talk about that a little bit later in this video. Talking about the bike I've been testing, it is a size extra large. I'm 6'2" for reference. Now I will say this is definitely the biggest extra large bike in this test. This has the combo of the longest reach and longest chainstay, leading this bike to also have one of the longest wheelbases out of the test. Now the frame itself is actually a single pivot flex stay design. However, unlike the Epic and the ASR, the flex stay on this bike is actually located on the chainstay a little closer to the rear axle. Now what that allows this bike to do is allows it to mimic a horse link bike. However, you don't get that extra wave penalty from all the bearing and linkages. Now for suspension, we actually have Roxox's Sid Select Plus. Unlike most of the other builds in this buyer's guide, this doesn't have the highest end offering from Roxox. However, talking to Roxox, I was told that the internals of these things are actually the same as the higher end suspension. It's just going to be a matter of weight and different materials used. For the drivetrain, we actually have a GX transmission drivetrain on there. For the cockpit, we actually have Cannondale's own carbon handlebars. We have their Cannondale grips, which I wasn't really the biggest fan of. We'll touch on that in a little bit. Cables are going through the headset on this thing, so it is a very clean look up front. Now, surprisingly, for $6,500, we still get carbon wheels, which is actually pretty awesome. These are hologram carbon wheels. Now, up front, we have a Recon race tire. In the rear, this is one of the few bikes that actually went super aggressive on that rear tire, so we actually have the Aspen back there, so super fast rolling, more so than the Recon Race, which I thought the Recon Race was fast rolling. For the dropper post, we actually have a Fox Transfer SL. The Transfer SL is a 2-position post, so there's no in-between setting. It's just up or down. Now we do have SRAM level brakes. In the Bronze series, these are 4-piston brakes. We have a Pro logo saddle on here. This has probably been one of the most comfortable stock saddles I have tested. And yeah, overall, a really good bang for buck build, especially considering the price point of this thing is $6,500. The weight comes in a little bit over 26 pounds, which once again, you guys, is in line with that 24 to 26 pound range of this entire series. Now the frame itself does have room for 2 water bottles, which is awesome. And on top of that, this is one of the few bikes in this buyer guide that actually features size proportional chainstays. Now that we've talked a little bit about the bike, let's get out on the trail, show you guys how this thing rides, and then talk about what I think about the Cannondale Scalpel. I'm really excited for this bike because basically as soon as I got on this bike, I realized this has to be one of the most comfortable bikes in the test. And you know, it's funny because like I said, all of these bikes look so similar on paper. 120 millimeters of travel, single pivot flex stay design like the ASR and the Epic. However, the Scalpel has a completely different riding personality from both of those bikes. And I would actually say this thing won some awards that you guys would probably be pretty shocked about. The other thing about the Scalpel, besides being one of the more comfortable bikes to be on pedaling position wise, it also has the most unique geometry. It is one of the longest bikes in this test. I think maybe even the longest, featuring long chainstays and a long reach. Making our way, steepest part of the climb. Can we do it? Yes, we can, because the seat angle feels so dialed on the Scalpel. I feel like I should just skip to the downhill for some of you guys. We are on 5 Oaks Trail. And let me just tell you guys this, the Scalpel, one of the most stable high-speed bikes in the shootout, primarily because of that longer wheelbase. Oh man, so good. One of the things I noticed is so much traction under braking. It's pretty insane. this is where I've really been pushing XC bikes past their limits sometimes. What? No issues with the Scalpel. Nice. So good. Same bang for buck build. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Couple of good corners down here. Now, something you do notice with the longer wheelbase is even though you get a lot of high-speed stabilities, it does take a little bit of time to get used to cornering this bike. It's very balanced. However, it's also very long. What's going on, you guys? Hopefully you're enjoying the video. Just want to take a quick second and thank today's video sponsor. And this is one that you guys love so much that we're bringing back, and that is Bicycle. Now, once again, you guys, like we've mentioned before, buying a used bike can be such a headache, and selling your used bike can also be a headache. We've been testing a lot of bikes. We've had to sell a few. And honestly, you guys, we are so stoked that there is finally a simple way to do it. Bicycle is one of the most awesome places to buy and sell your used bikes. If you are in the market for a used bike, there is no safer way to do it. All of these sellers on Bicycle are verified, and on top of that, you have 48 hours of buyer protection. So if your bike shows up and it's not exactly how it was listed in the description, you are going to be taken care of by Bicycle. Now, personally, one of my favorite things is how easy it is to sell on Bicycle. Not only do they come up with a suggested price for you, but on top of that, as soon as the bike sells, they'll actually send you a box as well as a label, and they'll schedule a pickup as well. They take all of the headaches out of buying and selling a used bike, and on top of that, their selection of bikes to choose from is incredible. They have mountain bikes, gravel bikes, and road bikes. The best part is if you have any bikes lying around right now, we actually have a discount code for you guys. It's awesome MTB, and it's actually going to waive all of the selling fees, so there is no more excuses not to make money off of bikes that are lying around that you've been thinking about selling. Now is the time to do it with Bicycle. We could not be more stoked on Bicycles. Once again, you guys, a safe, trusted place to buy and sell used bikes. We'll leave their information in the description of this video. With that being said, huge thank you to Bicycle for sponsoring this video, and let's get back into the video. Like I said, you guys, even though this, like the Epic and the ASR, is a single pivot bike with flex days, honestly, you guys, the pedaling dynamics on the Scalpel, I personally think is one of the better pedaling platforms of the test. It's still a single pivot, but I think putting that flex day a little closer to that rear axle on the chainstay gives this bike a little bit more of an anti-squat feel. And when you get out of the saddle and accelerate, it feels like the acceleration is a little bit more so than the ASR and the Epic. Also think this bike does rely on the lockout a little bit less under hard pedaling. However, it's not to say the Epic and the ASR are bad. It's just like I said, between the three, I really do like the feeling of the suspension design. Time to climb. And I will say, once again, you guys, longest wheelbase in the test. So when you are comparing these 7 bikes back to back to back on the same trails, you do notice some things. And one of those things is, yes, it does take a little bit more maneuvering on tighter switchbacks on the climbs on the Scalpel. However, once again, that has been just a slight adjustment I've had to make. Now, I'm really hoping that I'm able to spend a longer amount of time on each one of these platforms. I do think there is something to your body's adjusting to the bikes. And I do feel like with time, this would feel more and more natural. All right, we got a tight, twisty section up here, out of the saddle, man, freaking with ease. Boom, at the top, like I said, definitely one of the more comfortable bikes on the climbs. For the rocket portion of the test, Scalpel has such a good pedaling platform, even when the shock is open. These stock Cannondale grips are probably something I would swap out. Not the best for gloveless riders, something that I have noticed, but man, the stability on this bike, absolutely insane. So sick. Right through here, my God. Like I said, you guys, one of the most stable bikes in this test, and it really shows in this rock garden. You definitely feel the stability from that well-balanced geo, and the frame plenty stiff, but at the same time too, not fatiguing. It's that balance, and that's what I've kind of realized is a very difficult thing to achieve. This optimal carbon to where you have the stiffness where you want, but you also have that vibration dampening. The Scalpel frame definitely provides that. Up and over here. How's it going? All right, last section. How will it be on these corners? Still really good. Like I said, your body adapts. These, man, it just really glides through them, and you can carry so much speed and momentum. This bike is such a blast. See how capable these 120 mil bikes are getting. Let's go talk about the bike. Let's talk about some things that I absolutely love about the Cannondale Scalpel, some things that I didn't like, and honestly who I think this bike is for. What I absolutely love about this bike is how stable it is. Once again, you guys, this is one of the few bikes in this category to utilize size proportional chainstays. The XL definitely has a longer chainstay than the other bikes in this test, and the overall wheelbase on this bike is definitely larger as well. This thing is almost 2 inches longer wheelbase wise than the Pivot Mach 4 SL. It's crazy to think how comfortable I felt on this bike right out of the box and how stable it was at high speeds. You truly have a very centered feeling when you're out on the trails. And I think once again, you guys, a lot of it's gonna come to that size proportional chainstay because it really does give you a very balanced feel when you are riding this bike out on the trail. Now, that balanced geometry definitely carries over to climbing. When you are climbing, you definitely feel very centered in the bike. It's a very comfortable pedaling position. I feel like the seat angle does feel fairly steep on this bike. And I would actually say this was probably one of the most comfortable pedaling position bikes out of the test. I didn't find myself shifting my weight too much to find traction. However, I will say the longer wheelbase as a whole did make certain tight, twisty corner switchback climbs. Did have to put a little bit more mental effort on those sections. So that is something to keep in mind. The bike itself, once again, is overall a little bit longer than other bikes in this test. Another thing that I really loved about the Cannondale Scalpel is the suspension design. Once again, you guys, this is a single pivot bike like the ASR as well as the Epic. However, it rode completely different than those other two bikes. And I would also say it maybe even had a better pedaling platform. When you got out of the saddle and started sprinting, I could definitely feel that anti-squat had a very efficient acceleration out of the saddle. Now, obviously, I don't think it's on par with the W-Link in terms of out of the saddle sprints, but I do feel like the Cannondale Scalpel was less reliant on a lockout in comparison to the ASR as well as the Epic. Now, carrying on with the suspension design, I did feel like on the downhills, the Cannondale Scalpel had some of the best traction under braking, especially when the trails got super bumpy or super rocky. Cornering on this bike also felt very controlled. I will say it did take a little bit of fine tuning in terms of my mentality coming into corners. The other bikes definitely had a little bit more of a slashing cornering feel, where this one feels a little bit more composed and you kind of got to take it a little bit different of an angle. But that is something to keep in mind, especially if you're coming from a bike with a little bit of a shorter chainstay coming to this bike. It is going to feel like a little bit different when you're coming into corners. And as crazy as this sounds, in terms of the actual Cannondale Scalpel, I do feel like that was one of the only negatives I felt out on the trails. I really did love this bike. So to summarize things up for the Cannondale Scalpel, I truly was very impressed by this bike, not only by its price point, but by the amount of bang for buck you get with this bike and how much I absolutely love the geometry out on the trails. I really did think testing out the other bikes that I kind of knew what I would want from an XC bike, and then I got on this thing and everything completely changed. I really do think that Cannondale absolutely nailed the geometry on this bike. I don't want to ruin the conclusion video of this buyer's guide, but I do have to say this about the Cannondale Scalpel. My wife Hannah has ridden a bunch of bikes over the years, and she says this is one of her favorite bikes she's ever ridden.
I think the Scalpel is faster than my Yeti SB140. Down that chute, it just feels like it tracks so well, and it just like slingshots you through the section. Like, it's insane.
I feel like that clip really does sum up the Cannondale Scalpel. And once again, you guys, if you have any questions on the Cannondale Scalpel, definitely let us know in the comment section. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and not miss out any other videos of this buyer's guide. Once again, we have the conclusion video of this test showing you guys all of the times and also giving out awards, including what bike I love the most, what bike I think is going to be my personal XC bike, and also what bike was the most fun. Is the Cannondale Scalpel going to win any of those awards? You guys will have to stick around and find out. Hopefully you guys like this video, and until next time, you guys, ride awesome. Whew.